I've been wanting to start a photography blog for some time now, but the name Angry Photographer seems to have been taken by another guy on YouTube, so I'm just going to call myself the Honest Photographer and try to posit views that may be helpful to people who are just getting started in photography, or maybe into the enthusiast variation of photography. First of all, I am not a professional, and by professional I mean a person whose primary income is derived of their photographic endeavors. And YouTube is replete with people who claim to be professional photographers. However, it's my opinion that most of these so-called professional photographers are professional reviewers, often compensated by the companies of the products that they are pushing on their website. And I think too many people in the world today have been caught, or photographers, or people interested in photography in the world today, are unduly influenced by these people into what I will call the realm of gear chasing, whereby people are led to feel that if they do not possess the latest and greatest gizmos out there and the most expensive, then for whatever reason their photographic aspirations will be somewhat limited. Now, first, the audio on this might not be the greatest. Like I said, I am not a professional, don't claim to be. I have earned a side income from photography since 1986 when I owned my first SLR. Yes, I said SLR, which stands for single lens reflex camera. Back in those days, we shot on something called film, which has largely fallen out of favor in this day and age, and I understand that. It's very expensive to shoot on film compared to the cost of editing images in image manipulation programs. But I digress. My end goal of this platform will be to not only communicate photography tips, and like I said, even though I am not a professional, I've been involved in photography since the early to mid 1980s and have progressed along those lines. And yes, of course, I use digital today, as most photographers do. But what kills me are YouTube videos always starting with the phrase, "Is X and X still relevant in X and X year?" And you will literally see thousands of videos on YouTube from content creators asking if a certain camera is still relevant in 2020 or 2021. I would argue that any camera is still relevant in 20 and 21, regardless of its megapixel count, its sensor size, and frankly, whether or not it is a film or digital camera, whether it is a 1-inch sensor, a micro four thirds sensor, a medium format size sensor, or whatever is the popular connotation today. What you see here are two of my favorite cameras, the Canon 5D Mark IV, and I am primarily a Canon shooter, and this little Lumix LX100 a micro four thirds sensor. I love both of these cameras. This is the Sigma 50mm 1.4 art lens attached to the camera, which in my opinion is sharper and of course half the price, or almost half the price, of the Canon equivalent of the lens. Now, there are people on the YouTube that are going to try and push you toward purchasing the latest and greatest, such as the Canon R3, the Canon R5, the Canon R6, the new mirrorless generation of cameras. And while there are benefits to these cameras, the question is, would the average person normally go out and spend between $3,000 and $6,000 on a new camera just because? I would say most people would not, and most people should not be influenced by YouTube videos to go out and purchase these cameras. I have used the camera 5D series since the first iteration, the 5D original. I eventually moved to the 5D3 and the 5D4. Not because they were the latest and greatest technologies, but because they suited my needs. And people should purchase a camera based on their needs, not what is newest. To the uninitiated, more megapixels might always seem like a great idea, but even the newest cameras are not always increasing the number of megapixels to reflect the times. For example, the new Canon R3, which is the top of the line Canon camera at this time, only has 20 megapixels. Why? Because megapixels are only part of the game. Megapixels do not fully speak to the quality of an image. The more megapixels, the larger the file, the more complicated it might be to edit a video or edit a picture. And just to be upfront, I am not a video shooter. I am a stills photographer. So if you're looking for information or tips on video shooting, this is probably not the right channel for you, as I will focus on still photography. And if you are a person out there shilling for a manufacturer, whichever it might be, and I'm not going to call out individual people, Jared, but there are a lot of people out there that are shilling for particular companies. And sometimes they do this very indiscreetly, very subtly, and very tacitly, hinting that a person should buy a particular camera without actually coming out and saying it. So I hope you will follow Honest Photography as we venture together upon this journey and hope to improve photography. And like I said, skill matters a lot more than your camera body. The lens, in fact, matters more than your camera body. Back in the day, we had to shoot on film, and we were concerned with even before the days of autofocus, we were able to focus sharply on subjects at weddings, on portraits, on landscapes, and we did not have autofocus at all at our disposal, or autofocus points. And now people have become so reliant on this technology that if a camera does not have automatic facial focus or automatic eye recognition, that some people will automatically discount that camera as a possible purchase simply because they have been convinced that without that technology, they will not be able to take good pictures. I assure you that back in the 1980s, when I started photography, plenty of people were getting sharp, great, clear, crisp photographs without having any autofocus points, let alone 1,000 autofocus points or automatic eye tracking. These things, of course, they're nice, they're novel, but do you need them to be a good photographer? The answer is unassailably no. And I hate to see people spend, even though I have spent a ton of money on photography, on my hobby over the decades, I hate to see people lured into the trap of spending ridiculous amounts of money, often that they can't afford, based on a reviewer's opinion. So, again, I hope you'll appreciate this. Again, I am not a professional photographer, meaning I do not earn my primary income from photography. But I consider myself to be a decent photographer who can take good pictures, clear pictures, sharp pictures. And I have not gone into the mirrorless system of cameras out there. Why? For one thing, I have many thousands of dollars at EF glass. I don't want to have to put a converter between my Canon bodies, and I have two 5D4s and a 6D Mark II. I don't want to have to put a converter between my, a $200 piece of glass between my $1,000 piece of glass and my body. And also, there's no reason to. This body still functions perfectly. My other bodies still function perfectly. Some people say, well, the other camera is lighter. Well, that's great. This camera, for me, perfectly fits my hands. The weight is perfect. I like the large body DSLRs. And I like these for short traveling. They work great. And that produces fantastic images for a sub-$1,000 camera. Please stay tuned. I'm going to try and update often, improve my editing skills here. We'll see where it goes. Thank you very much. My name is Michael, Honest Photography. And don't spend more than you have to. Don't be tricked.